So let us now look at question 9a. Two metals, G and H, have similar physical properties. Give two of these properties. So we are looking at the physical properties of metals, and we know that there are more than two. So you can just list any of the following. Firstly, metals have high melting and boiling points. Secondly, metals are good conductors of heat and electricity. And lastly, metals are malleable and ductile. So any of these two will be fine. So let us look at part B. Part B is actually talking about the rate of reaction. So explain why metal H reacts faster with water when the water is hot. So when the water is at a high temperature, the metal H and water molecules have more kinetic energy to overcome the activation energy. The frequency of effective collisions between H and the water molecules is higher, and thus the rate of reaction is higher. Moving on, explain why metal H reacts faster with water when the metal is powdered. So when the metal is powdered, its particle size decreases and the surface area increases. The larger surface area allows for a higher frequency of effective collisions, and thus the rate of reaction is higher as well. Let us now look at part C. Explain why metal G will not react with water no matter how hot the water is or how finely powdered the metal. So right now we are actually looking at the reactivity series. So we can actually say that metal G is very low in the reactivity series and is less reactive than hydrogen. Thus, it has no reaction with water. Moving on to part 2. More energy is needed to extract metal H from its compounds than is needed to extract metal G. So explain why. So as metal H is more reactive than metal G, the compounds of metal H are more stable than compounds of metal G. Hence, more energy is required to extract metal H. So what does this actually mean? It might sound very confusing that the metal H is more reactive but the compounds of metal H is more stable. This is because metal H is reactive, correct? So metal H will actually react with its surrounding, forming these stable compounds, and it becomes more difficult to extract metal H from this compound because every time you try to extract, it will react with the surroundings again. Hence, more energy is actually required to extract this metal H. Lastly, let us look at part D. Suggest possible identities of metals G and H. So from part B and C, you can actually infer that metal G is less reactive and metal H is more reactive. So for metal G, possible identities of G can be silver or gold or any metals that are lower in the reactivity series such as copper. Yes, and for metal H, since it's more reactive, you can choose metals from the metals in group 1 and group 2 such as sodium and magnesium and even calcium. So metal H will be metals which are higher in the reactivity series. Okay, so let us now look at the marks allocation for question 9. So for question 9 part A, for question 9 part A, 2 marks are being allocated for the 2 physical properties. So as long as you give any of the 2 physical properties, you'll get the 2 marks. Yes. Okay, for 9 part B part 1. For 9 part B as a whole, it is 4 marks. So 2 marks each for part 1 and 2 marks for part 2. So for part 1, first we have to talk about the high temperature leading to more kinetic energy, which in turn, the kinetic energy will help to overcome the activation energy. So this will be 1 mark. Then the second mark will go to the increase in the frequency of effective collision, which results in the higher reaction rate. So that will be 2 marks for B part 1. So the other 2 marks for B part 2, first of all, we have to talk about how the particle size decreases and the surface area increases when the metal is powdered. So that will be 1 mark. And then second mark will go to the higher frequency of effective collision and thus the higher rate of reaction. So for part C, again part C will be 2 marks, so it will be 1 mark for each part. So C part 1, 1 mark will be given for talking about the low in reactivity series and how because it is less reactive than hydrogen, it has no reaction with water. And for C part 2, the 1 mark will go to metal H being more reactive than metal G, and thus the compound being more stable and more energy is required to extract the metal. And lastly, for part D, 2 marks are given, so you just have to suggest one identity for metal G and one identity for metal H. So that will be the marks allocation for question 9.